A year ago, we were looking at Goldman Sachs and worried that they were in danger of looking average. Now they actually do look average, and it might actually be of some sort of benefit to them. Anthony, explain what that's all about.
Well, think about how they've had to face the last couple of months. They've had, what's his name, Greg Smith resigning very publicly with his resignation letter to the New York Times. We, of course, have lambasted them for their jiggery pokery over corporate governance at the board. Yeah. And today they posted results which is 12% return on equity, which is in line with the two big banks last week, Wells Fargo and JP Morgan. Of course, they don't have any of the mortgage issues or any of the lending issues those guys do, so it looks a bit low. JP Morgan's investment bank, for example,
they're right in line pretty much with everyone else.
Yeah, on some respects. Well, JP Morgan's investment bank got if you strip out all these wonderful accounting issues we always have to deal with.
JP Morgan did a lot better.
They got 23%. It's not the best comparison because Goldman obviously has more things than just JP Morgan's investment bank. You could
and then you also did even Citigroup, which is a really, basically a struggling bank. Yep. Once you kind of play around with all the numbers, work everything out, they're sort of around 12%.
Yeah, their core business is probably around 12%. So it kind of looks all right. JP Morgan looks a bit better on investment banking. But
Lloyd Blankfein at Goldman Sachs, the people at Goldman Sachs are used to standing out from the crowd, rising above. But then in this case, it's actually probably nice that they've done a couple things that are good, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, they haven't reached for the skies on risk, so they're actually one of the few banks which decreased its value at risk, which is not a great measure of risk, unfortunately. It's the only one we've really got. Right. Whereas JP Morgan's went up slightly. Even on taxes, which I'm not sure how much you can prove this, but I do get the feeling that the big global banks can occasionally book trades wherever they want for tax purposes.
And their tax rate's quite high.
And it's in the mid-30s, which is pretty high for an investment bank.
And compensation was about 44%.
It's 44%. It still looks a bit high, as if they're treating their shareholders with well, they could have given shareholders.
Well, they gave shareholders dividends, so they did give them a little,
increased dividends, which is good. But we do kind of argue they could maybe reduce the comp level a bit. It's we can have an argument about that.
I mean, the fact that they're in the middle of the pack here, but I mean, there are some questions it raises. I mean, risk going down and paying a dividend are not things that we're accustomed to seeing at Goldman.
No, no. Well, don't forget they got approval from the Fed to increase their dividends, so they're just basically announcing it now a bit later than some of the other banks have done. So it's not that unusual to see that. Yeah, but if you look at their business, it's going okay. They've got some pretty good FIC numbers. It went up more than 100%. If you throw in some of the old investing and lending stuff, especially on the debt securities they own and lending, that brings them a bit more in line with, say, how JP Morgan reports. They're still behind them on total revenue, but it's looking pretty good. M&A and advisory and investment banking underwriting. Really, it's not
pretty
bad.
much
all things considered,
it's nothing for anyone to latch on to get worked up about.
There's no way you can
look at that and say,
the best
thing for Goldman at this point.
There's no way you can look at it and say you definitely screwed over your clients by treating them as muppets.
Right.
I mean, it looks pretty average, and right now that's probably pretty comfortable for them.
Might be nice for a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, we will leave it there. We'll be back with more Breaking Views tomorrow.